Are you all ready? Yes. Aloha! Aloha! Maikai, very good. Awesome, you guys are ready. Now in Maui, they also have a saying, and that saying is Maui no Ka'oi. And since we're in Maui, I think you should know what it means. So today's Hawaiian word of the day is no Ka'oi. Your turn, no Ka'oi. Awesome. Now, no Ka'oi means the best. And so when we say Maui no Ka'oi, we mean Maui is the best, and I would actually have to agree with that, and I think you might have to as well. If you also remember from last year, I introduced Snapdragon Elite Gaming. And I want to pause for a moment and focus on that word elite. What does it mean? In the simplest of terms, elite means best of the best. And so when we say Snapdragon Elite Gaming, we mean the best technologies for gaming, the best gaming experience for gamers. And Snapdragon Elite Gaming transforms mobile devices into powerful gaming machines and brings the best of the best in gaming to everyone. We talk about Snapdragon 865 being the beast. Snapdragon Elite Gaming helps you get into beast mode. So you might ask yourself, does gaming really matter? Well, games account for almost half of all smartphone use and 74% of all App Store spend. That equates to almost $70 billion annually. And these are astonishing numbers. All indicators tell us that those numbers are going to continue to climb. After seeing numbers like that, it's not surprising that mobile gaming has eclipsed digital music and movies combined to lead in the entertainment category. Mobile gaming continues to expand not only in smartphones, but in exciting new devices, such as the Oculus Quest and Unreal XR viewers, where you can actually be in the game. But you'll hear more about XR tomorrow. And gaming will only continue to skyrocket with new cloud gaming platforms like Google Stadia and Microsoft xCloud that gives gamers access to more and more games anytime, anywhere. This just means that more and more mobile is essential, especially for gaming. The generation we're raising now is a mobile-first generation. And I know this because I have a house full of teenagers at home, and they're always on their phones. And I also bet that the generation that they're going to be raising will be a mobile-only generation. So that's something to think about. Not only is gaming taking off as far as gameplay is concerned, it's becoming a cultural and viewing phenomenon with a fan base that rivals professional sports and in-venue musical concerts. In 2020, esports viewership is estimated to be over 500 million people worldwide. Esports now has a bigger viewing audience than most US professional sports teams, and it's growing. Even universities and high schools are investing in and forming competitive esports teams that would rival their athletic programs. Don't take my word for it. To tell you about his own experience in gaming is Ali Kabani, better known as Myth. He's an American Twitch streamer and pro gamer. Myth found success playing FORTNITE and joined TSM as their FORTNITE captain and their first competitive FORTNITE player in early 2018. His Twitch channel has more than 5 million followers, and his social reaches over 19
It's been nuts, is the word that I would use to describe it. There's so much new tech that I wasn't aware of that's like coming to the space in the next few years thanks to the new processor. And I'm super excited to see all that come into play.
Awesome, we're really happy to have you here. So how did you get started in gaming in the first place?
So initially when I got started into gaming, I grew up in a family of 7 under one household, and a lot of my older siblings actually played video games, a lot of my older brothers. So coming into the family, like basically right as soon as I was able to hold a controller, there was something there for me to hold, and I started playing Xbox, PlayStation right off the rip, and that's basically how I got my foundation.
Sweet, and how did you get into FORTNITE and knowing how it's blown up? What is that? Are you like really surprised by all of that?
Oh, I mean, definitely. Not in a million years did I expect FORTNITE to have the impact that it's had on the world and in the mobile gaming and just everything. But my introduction into FORTNITE actually was, I played a few games from Epic prior and was always following FORTNITE before they actually released their Battle Royale version. And then right as soon as their Battle Royale version popped up and I seen the Twitter video, I was like, yo, I gotta hop on this instantly, like ASAP.
So we talked a lot about gaming and how it's blowing up and crazy numbers, surpassing music and movies. Is that just like crazy, like mind-blowing to you?
No, I seen the statistic. I was literally watching behind stage, and it is mind-blowing. I'd never seen those stats before, and it's crazy to see how far gaming is going, especially mobile gaming. So that's super exciting.
So how has the mobile really transformed the gaming industry for you? You stream, you have fans, you engage with them. Like really, what does mobile mean for you?
So for me specifically, I think as someone that is a content creator, a entertainer, somebody that has a lot of influence over people as well, seeing how the new generation of gaming is trending toward a more mobile space is something that's super unique, something that we haven't really seen in the past, 5 to 10 years in gaming. So, traditionally people have been playing on consoles, PCs, but now you have this new generation of people that are kind of starting on their first device, and their first device is a mobile device, which is really, really exciting. So I have to kind of take into the consideration that there's going to be new culture that takes into place. A lot of new ways of gaming are starting to be developed, and it's kind of like, I have to get with the new times, or I get left in the past.
Well, we don't want that, right?
No.
So at Qualcomm, we create a lot of the new innovation in gaming that you're going to find in your mobile devices coming up. We have a bunch of engineers that innovate every day. So if you can have a direct line into those engineers and say, hey, yo, here's what we want in mobile gaming moving forward, what would that be?
So for me personally, I think that would be obviously like more frames and higher refresh rates on displays for mobile gaming. Being able to have for example, like a 144 hertz display on my phone would be absolutely crazy. Like being able to crank my 90s in FORTNITE would be insane on 144 hertz.
Well, hold that thought. I think you're going to be really excited to hear what we're going to tell you in a few minutes, and everyone else. But in the meantime, thank you so much for coming and sharing your story.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you guys so much.
Give it up for Myth. So the era of mobile gaming has given gamers like Myth, like any of us who game, the freedom to play anywhere, with an experience that rivals the graphics and performance you get from console and PC games. And that's why the rise of a new category of smartphones dedicated to gaming is powered by Qualcomm Snapdragon. Elite gaming devices for gamers who want the best and want to be the best. In a gaming survey earlier this year, we learned that 80% of people who play games on their phones actually want those specialized gaming phones. They want the highest gaming capabilities, and they're willing to pay more for it. Why? Because winning matters. Having the best gaming experience matters. Being the best you can be matters. In a moment, Todd Lemoyne, the technical lead from our gaming engineering team at Qualcomm, will come out and tell you about the exciting new features that Snapdragon Elite Gaming on 865 is going to bring to you. But first, check this out.
Hello. Thank you, Leilani. So I wanted to start today by asking a question. If you could remember back to the favorite gift that you were given as a kid. For me, the clear winner was the original Nintendo Entertainment System. This nondescript gray box seemed like magic to me and turned me into a lifetime gamer. But when I think about where kids today are experiencing video games for the first time, it's overwhelmingly happening on mobile devices that are so far beyond what I had available to me then. So we don't have to go back to the 1980s, though, to think about this comparison. Take a game like FORTNITE. This is a game that delivers a virtually identical experience across PC, console, and mobile. This wasn't possible 5 years ago. We worked very closely with our friends at Epic Games to optimize their complex rendering pipelines for our hardware. But even then, we occasionally find ourselves bumping into the limits of our hardware. Which is why, with Snapdragon 865 and Elite Gaming, we're pushing beyond the limits. At Qualcomm, it's always been about producing the best possible gaming experience on our platform. With Elite Gaming delivering ultra-smooth gaming at the highest HDR quality and desktop-level features. These are three key areas I want to talk to you about today. Let's start with ultra-smooth gaming. Last year, Qualcomm introduced Game Jank Reducer and Q-Sync. This enhanced the gaming experience at 30 frames per second. But today's Android games are running at over 60 frames per second at the highest possible settings on Snapdragon. So today I'm announcing a new feature called Game Smoother. Game Smoother is a major update to last year's offering. Jank Reducer can now run at any refresh rate, ensuring that frames are delivered to the display in a smooth, predictable manner in sync with what the game is simulating. In addition, I'm really excited to announce a new feature called Adaptive Game Performance Engine. The Adaptive Game Performance Engine is monitoring game workloads in real time at the frame and subframe level, making real-time adjustments to system performance to ensure that these games are running as smooth as possible at the highest quality settings for as long as possible. Game Smoother is going to be a major advantage for gamers on Snapdragon 865. We've also been working very closely with the talented team at PUBG Mobile to enable 90 frames per second gaming modes with PUBG. We believe this is a major trend in gaming that you're going to see a lot more of next year, with the team at PUBG leading the charge. We also knew that for some games, we could achieve 120 frames per second, which is why we've been working very closely with our friends at Tencent to enable 120 frames per second gaming modes for their top games like QQ Speed. But we didn't stop there. We listened to gamers like Myth, and I am so excited to announce, in a first for mobile, support for 144 Hz displays. 144 Hz displays on desktop are the gold standard, especially amongst competitive gamers and esports players. Now, you can have that same 144 Hz display in your pocket. But it's also not just about how fast we're sending frames to the display. We wanted to make sure that those frames had the highest HDR quality and the most vivid color. So last year, Qualcomm introduced true 10-bit HDR gaming for Android, allowing gamers to game in over 1 billion shades of color. We've been working with several of our partners to enable 10-bit HDR gaming, and I'm so excited to announce our partnership with PUBG Mobile to enable 10-bit HDR gaming modes for PUBG. I really want to extend a special thank you to the PUBG Mobile team for all the hard work that they've put into enabling this bleeding-edge feature. The results are spectacular, and I cannot wait for you to see them. There's also a whole bunch of games out there, though, that weren't designed for 10-bit HDR output. So we wanted to take a look at what we could do to improve the visual quality for those games. So today, I'm rolling out a new feature called Game Color Plus. Game Color Plus can enhance the visual fidelity of all current games running on Snapdragon. Importantly, it's powered by our Adreno display processor for the lowest latency, power, and memory bandwidth. And most importantly, no changes to the game code are necessary. Let's take an example and look at what Game Color Plus can do for a game called Lineage 2. So Lineage 2 is an amazingly popular game, generating over $1 billion in revenue with over 30 million active players, with their average players spending 4 hours in a single gaming session. So let's take a look at Game Color Plus being applied. Here you can see one of the key features of Game Color Plus enhancing the detail in the game. We're also able to use our local tone mapping hardware to increase the brightness and contrast as needed. And again, this is all being performed by our Adreno display processor in real time without adding additional frames of latency. In another example, you can see how we can make the game scenes come alive by boosting the color saturation. Notice how this already compelling scene has become so much more vivid on the display. We importantly also wanted to take a look at how we could optimize the actual rendering of these HDR frames and further increase the visual quality. So today I'm announcing a new hardware feature we call Adreno HDR Fast Blend. Adreno HDR Fast Blend can help accelerate the rendering of all games that are using complex blending to achieve different effects. For example, in games today, particle effects like fire, smoke, snow, these are all achieved by rendering multiple layers of translucency over one another and then blending them together to produce the final result. For example, if you want to throw a lot of bombs and smoke bombs in PUBG Mobile and not have your frame rate tank, you are going to need Adreno HDR Fast Blend. Let's go into a little more detail. What you can see here is a heat map of complexity of this scene. The colors represent the number of layers that are being blended to produce the final output, where blue represents maybe just 1, and white represents over 10 layers that are being blended together. This represents the most complex and challenging portion of the scene to render. With HDR Fast Blend, this scene was originally running at 30 frames per second. But now with this new hardware feature enabled, we're easily hitting 60 frames per second. This is why you need Snapdragon 865. There's some other desktop level features that we're bringing to mobile that I'm really excited to talk to you about today. One of the things PC gamers really like about desktop gaming is the control they have over their devices. PC gamers can update their GPU drivers at any time to get the latest possible optimizations and features as they become available. This is just simply not possible on Android today. Well, until now. So today I'm so excited to announce for the first time on Android support for updatable GPU drivers. Our graphics software team has done a tremendous job re-architecting key portions of the graphics driver and working with our partners at Google to ensure users are able to have an easy, seamless experience updating drivers on their devices. You'll be able to simply go to the Google Play Store, download the appropriate GPU driver application, and update your drivers. This allows mobile gamers to get the same performance optimizations and features that their desktop counterparts have been able to get for years. And most importantly, they're able to get these updated drivers well after the phone has launched. Another feature I'm really excited to talk to you about today is desktop forward rendering. Desktop forward rendering allows us to bring advanced shading and lighting post-processing to mobile, which was previously only in the domain of desktop PCs. This is possible due to the additional shader cores that have been added to the Adreno 650 GPU and aggressive software optimizations that the team at Qualcomm has done to take these algorithms, which were designed traditionally for power-hungry, direct render desktop GPUs, and optimize them for low-power, tile-based Adreno renderers. This is going to allow for more realistic, and immersive graphics for games. On mobile, let's take an example. On mobile, depth of field is usually implemented by simply blurring out the background. Desktop forward rendering offers a high-fidelity version of this post-processing, where we can take physical camera properties and utilize them to create a more realistic and cinematic version of depth of field. This is a highly desired look in games today. One of the marquee features of desktop forward rendering is the ability to use a ton of dynamic lights. Most mobile rendering pipelines today severely limit the number of dynamic lights that can be applied to the scene due to the increased complexity of calculating the lighting equation for all of these lights and then blending them together. A common technique for optimizing this on desktop is to utilize compute shaders at the front of the pipeline to cull out lights that don't affect individual objects in the scene. This is now possible on Adreno 650 due to our increased compute performance. Along with these dynamic lights, you're of course going to want to have more dynamic shadows. Now, dynamic shadows are created by re-rendering the scene from the point of view of all of the lights in the scene, combining those results together in the final image. These are really heavy workloads to render, but they're not a problem for Snapdragon 865 hardware now. One of the really cool features that I love is called motion blur, desktop motion blur. This is generated by creating a series of motion vectors while rendering the main portions of the scene, and then using those motion vectors later in rendering to appropriately blur the image along the velocity vectors of the objects in the scene. This creates increasing shader complexity and loads up the fragment processing of the GPU. Again, this is not a problem for our Adreno GPUs. As with shadows, planar reflections require rendering the world from an entirely different camera view. For all of the reflecting surfaces, this view needs to be rendered. But most importantly, this view needs to be rendered with all of the same post-processing effects that are applied to the main scene to create a coherent image with the rest of the game scene. Note that on the right, the ball is not only being reflected in the mirror, but you can see that motion blur and HDR tone mapping have been applied so that it matches the results in the rest of the rendering. This is awesome. I'm really excited about this feature. So I'm a gamer, albeit not as good as Myth, but I can dare to dream. But I am so excited for gamers to discover the magic of gaming on Snapdragon 865. With ultra-smooth gaming at the highest HDR quality and desktop-level features, you guys are going to have so much fun playing on Snapdragon 865-based devices. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Keith Crescent to close out the morning. Thank you.